I recently made a video on this absolutely tiny little Game Boy, which is fully working, and it even has an actual cartridge which you can take out, and inside is the micro SD card, which was just so cool. Everybody loved it. Unfortunately, it was quite expensive, 67 Great British pounds, but I said in the video if it got enough likes, I would order the Game Boy Advance version, and that is exactly what I have for you here today. Now, I did just say that this one was 67 pounds. That was one of the biggest complaints in the video, was the price. That is a lot of money for something which is essentially a gimmick. This Game Boy Advance, I'm very happy to report, is even more money. This one came in at 107 Great British pounds. It's a little bit bigger than the DMG, but it is just absolutely adorable. And of course, it is fully working. This one doesn't have a cartridge slot, but yeah, I'm really excited to turn it on and show you. I thought I would just show you the size comparison to an original unmodded Game Boy. This one right here is in purple, this one's white, but you can see it's pretty much the same sort of shape. This one's a little bit wider than this one. I think maybe it could just be the proportions though from it being shrunk down. But yeah, the screen is about the same size, the D-pad is the same sort of shape, and so is the action buttons. There are shoulder buttons on the top as well. There's no cartridge slot. There's nothing actually around it at all other than the USB-C port, which is really nice to see. It's really nice to USB-C, nice to USB-C, you know? Right, let's get straight into some gameplay. Here is Mario Kart. I'll talk about what this thing is in just a second, but let's just see how it runs. It's very difficult to see and play. You know what? This is absolutely perfect. This is absolutely flawless. Don't expect too much, you know, these are just tiny little gimmicky type things. If you want to play proper emulation, this is not the way to go. But if you have £100 and you wish to spend it on this, I would say it's a very cool thing. And it is actually a very capable little device. This is working very, very well. It's not making me better at Mario Kart, but then again, I don't think a lot of things could. I wouldn't suggest starting a big long RPG on this tiny little Game Boy, but I suppose to just carry around in your bag for a bus journey or something like that, it's pretty cool. It's more of a sort of a shelf item for me, but it's certainly more of a playable thing than this little dude right here. So, I want to show you this quickly because this is going to be a bit of a giveaway for some people. If you hold start and select, that's what's going to open up the menu, and you might recognize this. But what you will certainly recognize, by the way, obviously you have save states and all the rest of it. And you've also got a brightness control here too. The screen is a nice IPS display. But one thing that is very important to mention, if I hold down the select button, FunKey S. Yes, this is based off of a FunKey S. All they have done is just reshelled it in a Game Boy Advance. For those of you who don't know what a FunKey is, it's one of these things. I've reviewed it on my main channel, The Retro Future, and it's a really, really amazing device, but everything that this is a FunKey S, just reshelled in a Game Boy Advance. Right, we're going to open this thing up at the end of the video, but I just wanted to touch base on something it says in the description on AliExpress. It said that this system is modified from FunKey S, which is just a little bit questionable if you ask me, because a huge amount of development would have gone into the FunKey S to make that a product. You know, all of the research, the software, the UI, everything like that. And so for it to just be sort of like used in some way in this product does make it a pretty questionable thing to be buying if you're interested. The form factor is without a doubt nicer than the FunKey S. The FunKey S is similar to this. It's very sort of like cramped, but yeah, I can't recommend buying this thing considering it's using a FunKey S. It just seems a little bit naughty. They were being honest at least, but that's probably because it literally says FunKey S when you turn this thing on. Another thing which is just so funny is that it says, handmade, defects are inevitable, please avoid if you require perfection. Which I might just start saying about all of my videos. So here we go, PlayStation 1 running on this tiny little Game Boy, but I would probably prefer to advise that you go over and buy a FunKey from FunKey. It seems a little bit naughty to be selling this. I wasn't even looking, by the way. I wasn't looking at playing the game, so that's why I lost it. I'm really good at games, actually. So here we are. We are playing Sonic the Hedgehog for the Game Gear on the Game Boy Mini / FunKey S reshelled, and it works pretty damn well. You have to remember that while this is expensive, you are certainly not paying for its emulation abilities. If you want a really good emulator, I would not recommend going for something this small. And you can probably get something really, really good for the same amount of money. Where do I go? It's so hard to play these games and look up at the screen of my camera. I'm lost. I'm very lost. I have genuinely no idea where I'm going. I'm so lost right now. Is this better not be the same place I just came out? What? Isn't this where I just was? I did it. No! The display is absolutely gorgeous. I have still got the screen protector on here because I'm probably going to give this as a gift to a friend, but the display is absolutely gorgeous. Just look at it. I really think that this is an optimal way of playing microscopic emulation if you're going to play it at all, because this landscape mode means you can get your big thumbs either side of the screen, and at least I'm just sort of holding it in my fingers like this, and it does work. It really, really does work. It's a very cute little thing, and the emulation is just great. It works well enough to play it and enjoy it, but all of the emulation experts, police, are still going to comment on this video saying, "I saw a screen tear," or whatever it is that they say. But there we go. That is Neo Geo Pocket working absolutely lovely. Okay, so we're going to play a little bit of original Game Boy just to show you this working as well. If you open up the menu, you can go down to the aspect ratio and change it to scaled, and then you can play at the actual original aspect ratio your favorite Game Boy games. And yeah, it works really, really nicely. This is the kind of thing that I love about Game Boy. The games are just so simple. Hours of fun. I might leave this thing in the toilet. Small enough to get flushed down as well. Okay, so let's open this thing up and see if there's literally just a FunKey S wedged inside, or if there's a little bit more going on. Either way, I am rather excited. Now, as it said in the description, this is a homemade or handmade product, so please avoid buying if you require perfection. That's just hilarious to me, but what I am expecting to see is some elements of that sort of homemadeness inside, which will be fun to see. So let's open this thing up. Here's the back coming off now, and there we go, we're inside. So immediately I can report that it is not just a FunKey S wedged inside. There is an actual PCB in the shape of this device, which means that it is an actual product that someone has made specifically. I like the fact that there's a little bit of sponginess inside the shoulder buttons. That's going to sort of imitate the spring that was in the shoulder buttons of a Game Boy and make those press a little bit nicer. That looks to be that can't be the speaker. Is that the speaker? Surely not. Oh my goodness me. It is the speaker. No wonder the sound on this thing sounds pretty terrible. The shell is 3D printed, and then it's just been painted. So let's take a quick look around it. Here's the micro SD card. You'll be able to load the games in from the USB port there, but if you wanted to change the SD card, you could. There's the little battery. It says on AliExpress that you can expect to get 2.5 hours of gameplay out of this before it needs charging again. That's the speaker, as we discovered. An awful place to put it, but I suppose there's probably nowhere else to put it. Makes me want to drill a couple of holes in the back of the shell and actually open up the sound somewhat. Let's take this out further and see. Okay, there's the ribbon cable for the screen. I'm just gonna unplug that with my nail, and here we have the inside. So there's the buttons. Those buttons are just solid plastic. There is no sort of like rubber membrane, but they still press very nicely. There's tiny little surface mount component switches on the motherboard here, which is how the buttons work. The screen is absolutely lovely. I imagine it is the exact same screen that goes in the FunKey S. Probably why there's a sort of a longer part here so that it can fold through the hinge of the FunKey S. Maybe? Just speculation. There is our homemadeness that we were looking for. There's some Sharpie in there. That is because right there is the power LED, and so that's to avoid the light leaking through. Very creative little way to do it. And then here is the actual motherboard itself. Now, you'll have to forgive me. I don't know a huge amount about components and motherboards and all the rest of it, but I imagine this is quite literally going to be a FunKey chip and then just a redesigned motherboard. And I'm hoping that a FunKey was actually used in the making of this, and so some of the money does go to FunKey to build this, but maybe that's a bit idealistic. I don't know, but this is probably what is copied. It may even be just removed from a FunKey and put in here, and then this motherboard was just printed and all the parts moved over. In fact, maybe all of the parts are from a FunKey and it's just re-shifted around in this format, and that's why you're spending £100, is because some dude has actually like taken all the parts off of a FunKey and put it on here. I don't know. I'm just a guy. Don't shoot the messenger. It runs so many different things. Game Boy Advance, NES, Super Nintendo, Game Gear, Sega Master System, Genesis, TurboGrafx, Lynx, Neo Geo Pocket, Wonders 1 Color, PlayStation 1, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance. That's going to wrap it up for this video. I really like it. It's very small. It's very cute. It's definitely something that I will keep on my shelf, and I'll pick it up at will and play it when I fancy, which will probably not be very often because I prefer to play things that are scaled a bit more appropriately. Thanks very much for watching. I will catch you all in the next one. Goodbye. Subscribe.